Hi, I'm Louise, I'm an archaeologist, and in this video we're going to be exploring 3 cave systems that each provide rare evidence of Neanderthal family structure, including the darker realities of inbreeding and cannibalism. Okladnikov and Chagyrskaya caves are located in southern Siberia in the Altai mountains. They would have been a cramped living space, and it's believed they were used as seasonal hunting camps. Chagyrskaya is dated to 51,000 to 59,000 years ago, and Okladnikov is dated to at least 44,000 years ago, so it's believed to be roughly contemporary sites. Researchers here analysed 13 Neanderthals, 11 from Chagyrskaya and 2 from Okladnikov. They all seem to be part of the same population, descendants of the late expansion of Eastern European Neanderthals into Siberia. And they were genetically distinct from earlier Neanderthals that occupied Denisova Cave, which is only 100 kilometres to the east and famous for where the ancient hominin population Denisovans were discovered. The 2 Okladnikov individuals were unrelated to each other and to any of the Neanderthals in the Chagyrskaya group. However, Okladnikov B shared the same mitochondrial DNA with Chagyrskaya G. And mitochondria are unique organelles. They carry their own genetic material which is distinct from nuclear DNA. And this is incredibly useful for several reasons. It has a high copy number, and it's more likely to survive for prolonged periods of time than nuclear DNA, meaning as archaeologists coming along much later are more likely to find it still surviving. And it's also really useful because offspring only inherit this from their mothers, meaning it's really useful for determining maternal family relationships even when a gap of several generations exists. So what sharing mitochondrial DNA means for Okladnikov B and Chagyrskaya G is that they likely lived within a few thousand years of each other and may have had some sort of connection. Sediment samples also indicate some interaction between these communities, despite them being distinct. 2 sediment samples from Chagyrskaya were more similar to Okladnikov A than to any other of the Chagyrskaya Neanderthals. Moving across to Chagyrskaya, this is where we get something absolutely incredible. The first Neanderthal family. One of the pairings identified was a father and daughter. The father also shared heteroplasmy with 2 individuals. This indicates they were maternally related, likely sharing a grandmother. The father and Chagyrskaya E could also have been first-degree relatives, either a parent, sibling or child. However, researchers couldn't be certain that Chagyrskaya E was a distinct individual, so we're not unfortunately 100% sure on this one. Chagyrskaya A and L were also identified to be second-degree relatives. Unfortunately, the exact kind of second-degree relatives wasn't able to be determined, but examples of second-degree relatives include aunt, uncle, grandparent, grandchild, niece, nephew or half-sibling. Another amazing finding for Neanderthal social structure was the results suggested a patrilocal organisation. Patrilocal organisation refers to a system where males remain in their birth communities and females migrate to their male partners' communities to form families and raise children. And this kind of social structure has some key implications for community dynamics. This includes the male's family having more authority, that women may lose the connections they grew up with and the group they were originally connected to. And the controlled movement of individuals can help maintain genetic diversity. So what evidence do we have for this at Chagyrskaya? Well, back to that father and daughter pair, despite on paper being the most closely related, they actually had the most distinct mitochondrial DNA. So remember, mitochondrial DNA is just inherited from the mother, so that means the mother was from a really distinct population, suggesting she had migrated in, which supports this patrilocal system. And that's not all. Overall, the Y chromosome diversity was much genetically lower than the mitochondrial diversity, suggesting that women were moving in and there was less genetic diversity in the male lineage. However, there are a few exceptions to this. The shared heteroplasmy between at least 2 males in the Chagyrskaya groups indicate that some females did remain in the group. And when the researchers ran simulations on this data, they suggest that between 60 to 100% of the females at Chagyrskaya migrated within to the group, which overall supports this idea of patrilocal organisation offering us a fascinating glimpse into the community dynamics of our closest evolutionary cousins. We've also got some more evidence for Chagyrskaya about how big these groups might have been. Up to a third of the sequences had long segments of homozygosity, and homozygosity is having inherited the same versions of a genomic marker from the same biological parent. And these high levels of homozygosity indicate a small community size, similar to modern day mountain gorillas, who live in groups of 4 to 20 individuals and have been on the brink of extinction. Despite the small group size of mountain gorillas, it has been noted that inbreeding between them second-degree relatives is rare. However, this high level of homozygosity is consistent with recent inbreeding episodes of parental relatedness of half-siblings. This may start to point at some of the darker sides of Neanderthal communities. However, this might have not been true for all Neanderthals. Neanderthals in Croatia, dated to 50 to 65,000 years ago, were found to be much more genetically diverse, and their inbreeding rate was similar to that of some groups of modern humans, suggesting this may not have been the case for all Neanderthals. So what is the picture of Neanderthal communities so far? We've got small group sizes, with males remaining in their birth communities and females migrating in, which helps maintain genetic diversity, albeit still pretty low genetic diversity. However, Chagyrskaya is at the easternmost point of Neanderthals' known range. Is this just reflecting their geographical isolation, or can we say this is true for all Neanderthal groups? For that, we need more evidence. And luckily, we've got some. But first, if you are enjoying this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps to push my channel out further. And don't forget, I've got the one-page infographic that you can get in the description below. Let's continue. Our next site is El Sidrón, located in northern Spain and is part of a 3,700 metre long karst system. Here, researchers discovered the remains of at least 12 individuals. 6 adults, 3 adolescents, 2 juveniles and 1 infant, that likely reflect a closely related group of kin and are dated to 49,000 years ago. They all died at around a similar time, and the remains came together due to a collapse in the karst system. The group may have been bigger originally, but the original assemblage can't be fully researched. Here we do have more evidence for that patrilocal organisation. The 12 individuals stemmed from 3 distinct maternal lineages. 7 represented one of the lineages, 4 represented another, and 1 represented the third one. And all 3 adult males shared the same mitochondrial DNA, while all 3 women had different mitochondrial DNA, suggesting they all came from distinct populations while the men did not. So this group was really small with low genetic diversity, but likely still had that patrilocal organisation. But this site shows us something more, something much darker, that might reflect the beginning of the end for the Neanderthal species as a whole. The homozygosity at El Sidrón showed a long history of inbreeding, not just one-off half-sibling events like we see at Chagyrskaya, instead a long history of small groups mating with genetic relatives for generations. However, at El Sidrón, we don't just have DNA evidence for inbreeding, we also have skeletal evidence. It was documented that there were 16 congenital anomalies across the skeletons, and these are anomalies that are present at birth. And these include anomalies that spread across the entire body, which you can see on here and probably on the screen too. There's also this table that shows the anomalies with the rate they appear at El Sidrón versus the rate compared to modern humans. And one of the anomalies was present in 4 individuals, which is a rate of 15.38% among the El Sidrón individuals, and in modern humans this only appears 0.001 to 1.8%. This indicates extreme inbreeding and extremely low genetic diversity. The story somehow gets even darker for the Neanderthals at El Sidrón, with them meeting a rather bleak end. The evidence suggests they were victims to cannibalism. Their bones show clear cut marks and fragmentation consistent with processing for bone marrow and brains. This nutritional component points to it being cannibalism rather than ritualistic behaviour like defleshing. No other human groups existed in this region during this time, so the culprit was likely another Neanderthal group, likely motivated by extreme nutritional stress or a violent territorial dispute. Around 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals disappeared from the fossil record after a history of small, isolated groups with inbreeding and interbreeding with other Paleolithic hominins.
Okay.
Patrilocal organisation may have at once maintained genetic diversity, but as Neanderthal population size is dwindling, its effectiveness was reduced. The story at Sidrón paints a bleak picture of life for Neanderthals 49,000 years ago, and may represent the early signs of Neanderthal population collapse, with extremely low genetic diversity, inbreeding, and even cannibalism. Chagyrskaya, Okladnikov and Sidrón all provide us with rare evidence of Neanderthal community life. The findings suggest these were small, male-centred groups where female migration provided the only genetic diversity. And while this may have worked for a millennia, at Sidrón we see its effectiveness stopping and not being able to prevent the eventual end of Neanderthals. Comment which site you found the most interesting, and please like and subscribe, it really helps to push my channel, and don't forget to grab the free infographic in the description. I'm also now on Ko-fi, coffee, and you can also now find my bookshelf linked down below. Thank you for exploring the distant past with me, there's always more to uncover, so I will see you in the next video.